a proposal on getting money out of politics, and it is aggressive. So let me give you the details on what Bernie Sanders would like to accomplish through this proposal. He'd like to pass a constitutional amendment that makes clear that money is not speech and corporations are not people. By doing so, Sanders says he will overturn the Supreme Court ruling that says money is speech, Buckley v. Valeo, pass legislation to end super PACs, political spending by 501c4s, and other organizations who accept unlimited contributions or do not disclose donors, and finally overturn Citizens United, which allows corporations to spend unlimited money on elections. Now, this is the heart of the proposal. There's more to it than that, but I'm now going to hand this over to Cenk, who will talk for the entirety of the story.
No, okay, look guys, so Anna's joking around about this is the thing that I wanted, but it's a thing I wanted not from Bernie Sanders' campaign, but from every campaign. Why? Because if you don't solve money in politics, you're not gonna be able to solve any of the other issues. Now, almost every candidate acknowledges that. Certainly everyone that is progressive and pretending to be progressive acknowledges that. I don't know, maybe Amy Klobuchar doesn't, I don't know, okay? But if you ask a random Democrat, even if they're not running for president, they will say, of course, money in politics is the #1 issue because otherwise we can't solve the climate change crisis, we can't solve guns. We got 97% of Americans that want a federal background check, but we can't get it. Why? Not because you need 98% in a democracy, you need 51% in a democracy. It's because the Republican Party takes checks from the NRA and gun manufacturers. The problem is, up until today, none of the presidential candidates on the Democratic side were aggressively pushing to actually get money out of politics. So it's not what I'm asking for, it's what the whole country is asking for. Not just Democratic voters. Republican voters hate corruption actually slightly more than Democratic voters do. That's according to the polling. And you know what it comes out at? 93% of Americans say that politicians represent donors instead of their voters. Now, the reason why there's not a lot of pressure outside of this show on any of the candidates is because the rest of the media loves that corruption. Where does the money in politics go? It goes towards television ads. So do you think television stations are gonna tell you, oh no, that's bad. Why don't you take away $6 billion every other year from me? No, they wanna make a profit. So they never talk about the elephant in the room. So today is an amazing day when Bernie Sanders finally says, yeah, that's it. I'm against the corruption. I'm against it and we're gonna do something about it. And it's not just, hey, you know what? Oh yeah, it's a bad issue, but I have no specific proposals. No, this goes to the heart of it. We need an amendment. We need public financing. We're gonna get to some more details on that in a second. And we need to kill all the super PACs. So why did I start Wolfpack? Which is, the whole point of it is to get this amendment, right? I did that back in 2011 because if you don't have an amendment, the Supreme Court then turns around and goes, nope, anything you try to fix this problem, I'm gonna call unconstitutional. Is it actually unconstitutional? No, of course not. Corporations are not human beings. Bernie Sanders says it in this proposal. We're gonna do an amendment that says the most obvious thing in the world, they're not human beings. Every actual human being knows that. Only the corrupt politicians and the corrupt Supreme Court pretend that they're human beings and have the inalienable rights endowed by their creator of human beings. Preposterous. And they do not have speech rights. So that is why it's really important that Sanders mentions Buckley v. Valeo. This isn't just about Citizens United. Citizens United in a lot of ways shot a dead horse. Buckley v. Valeo is what killed a horse in the first place. So this is a sophisticated, correct analysis of the core problem, the one we must fix so that we can fix all the other problems, so we can bring democracy back. So until the other candidates propose something like this, you now only have one choice. So there's possibility that other candidates will come in with equally good proposals, better proposals, I don't know. But for now, right now, out of the entire field, if they're not pushing for an amendment and they're not pushing for public financing, then they're not gonna get anything done. So you only have one choice right now. That's just a stone cold reality.
Gerams, all right. And yes, I'm messing around. I'm just trying to joke around with Cenk a little bit, but he takes this topic very seriously. I do too. But yeah, I agree. I mean, if you want to accomplish all of those wonderful proposals, those detailed proposals, whether it be the Green New Deal or Medicare for All, you're not gonna be able to get good faith actors in Congress to debate the issue if they're being influenced by corporate interests, right?
So I'm gonna give one more example, okay? Because this is not an issue. This is the only issue. So come on, that seems much, right? I mean, the climate's burning down, right? No, you don't get it. And it's obvious that nobody gets it. Look, whether it's Sierra Club or Greenpeace or Sunrise Movement or any group on any other issue, they should stop everything they're doing and focus only on this. Why? So, do you know that 3/4 of Americans believe that climate change is real and that the United States government should do something about it? And yet, we're not doing what 3/4 of Americans want in a so-called democracy. Guys, getting that number from 74% to 84% or 94% is irrelevant. We already have awareness of the climate crisis. We already have the American people screaming to do something about it. That's not the problem. The problem is we don't have a democracy. So until you get your democracy back, everyone else is wasting their time. And they're chasing at windmills. Oh my God, what if I convince a Republican senator to go along? Well, number one, you're not going to.
Right.
Why? Because they're corrupt. They take oil and gas money. Let me give you one last fact. Of the people who are against Green New Deal in Congress, do you know how much they've taken on average from the fossil fuel industry? $455,000. You think you're gonna convince them that they shouldn't take $455,000?
Each candidate on average?
Each candidate on average.
Jeez.
The people who support the Green New Deal in Congress versus the people who are against it, the ones that are against it take 24 times more money from the fossil fuel industry than the ones that are in supportive of it. 24 times more. And of course, the ones that are leading the effort against the Green New Deal take no corporate back money. That's why they're leading the charge, because they're the ones that are clean and uncorrupted. If you're not doing this, you're literally not doing anything. The rest is just a lot of games, and it's not gonna. And even if a progressive wins, they're not gonna accomplish anything unless they do this first.
Absolutely. So what Bernie Sanders would like to do is create a new system of small dollar vouchers that would convert this electoral system to a publicly financed system. So it would give any voting age American the ability to donate to federal candidates. Again, using these universal small dollar vouchers. So that's what Cenk was alluding to earlier about how these would be publicly financed campaigns as opposed to what we have now, these corporate backed campaigns that usually lead to our politicians working against our best interests. He would also do away with the FEC because he feels that it doesn't have the teeth necessary to really do its job in enforcing some of these campaign finance laws. So he proposes something known as the Federal Election Administration, and the new FEA would have 3 members, a chair and 2 administrators. All members must have a background in some form of law or ethics enforcement, which would also include former judges. And then, I mean, it's so comprehensive. He talks about the DNC and how it's funded. So he would ban the corporate funding of the Democratic National Committee. Obviously, this would also apply to the Republican National Committee. And it's
no, but those are 2 separate things. Let me be clear. If you do, and let me just break down the timing of things because this is very important. You do public financing first because there is no constitutional issue with that. Even the Supreme Court says there's no constitutional issue with that. You can't end private financing according to the Supreme Court. So Soros and the Koch brothers can put in as much money, and ExxonMobil can put in as much money as you want. But that doesn't mean you can shut the American people up. So what you can do is pass public financing. In this case, Bernie is calling it and has the courage to call it vouchers. And what it does is it empowers you to give out a certain amount of money to politicians. It's actually a very small amount overall in the context of the budget, but it would actually even the score so you can compete with ExxonMobil because there's so many of you. And other candidates have done this. Andrew Yang calls it democracy dollars. It's great. Kirsten Gillibrand, when she was in the race, actually took the $100 that Yang was talking about, made it $600. I think Bernie should be more specific about the amount. I think it should be anywhere between $500 to $1,000. But you do that first because it allows real Americans to compete with the private money that is going into elections. Then you have enough clean politicians that you could pass an amendment. So that is a realistic path to actually fixing this solution, this problem. The DNC, in the meanwhile, if Bernie wins, the RNC gets affected later when you pass the amendment, okay? But the DNC you control immediately because you're the presidential candidate for the Democrats. And in this case, he'd be the president, right, if he wins. So he just tells the DNC, you're not allowed to take corporate money anymore. Heads at the DNC are exploding right now. Like, look, the only reason why they're not is they, of course, as with the rest of Washington, always dismiss Bernie Sanders. But if they thought he was gonna win and he's gonna cut off their corporate funders, they'd be like, no, that's my money. And look, one more part of this that's important. Elizabeth Warren had a really great proposal about ending people who go and work as lobbyists. But it was, to be honest, and we broke it down for you guys, but it was complicated. If you work in this branch, there's a certain window in time that you can't be a lobbyist before and after, mainly after, and then if you work in that branch, there's another window, etc. Bernie's proposal is very simple. If you work as a congressional staffer, you can't be a lobbyist, period, lifetime ban. Now, people in Washington will flip out. Well, how are we supposed to cash in? You see, you're not supposed to cash in.
You're supposed to be a public servant.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so that is another part of this proposal that is fantastic. So if you actually want to bring democracy back, right now, this is the most important proposal of the entire presidential election cycle. And by the way, like I've said, and you've seen it on the show, I love a lot of the proposals that have been put forward by the progressive candidates before. But you're never gonna get any of them until you do this one first. So Bernie's up first. And I don't know if anybody else will follow him. And in fact, I want to end on that note. The Washington Post, in covering it, I had issues with how they covered it. They mainly are like, oh, there was a lot of talk about like, oh, he had a heart attack, so he did this proposal. Well, first of all, if this is like some sort of thing to cover up his health issue, well, then he's Superman. So he's on his hospital bed putting together the best proposal for campaign finance of any of the candidates. Well, then you should all vote for him because that's amazing, okay?
It's dedication.
Right, or more likely, yeah, they've been working on this for a while, right? And so it's not meant to cover anything up, it's meant to actually fix the system. But the Washington Post can't wrap their minds around that. Oh, making things clean, oh, democracy, ugh. What are you, earnest? I don't get, where's the slimy angle? I know every other politician you cover has that issue, but maybe, just maybe he might be honest. Okay, so, but in the midst of that, they said something that I think is partly a shot at him, but I actually interpret it in a way that is actually really important. So I want to share it with you guys. Chelsea Janes wrote, in taking aim at the big dollar fundraisers utilized by Trump, as well as many of his Democratic rivals, Sanders' plan reinforces a key point of his pitch. He sells himself as the man most able to garner grassroots support and stand up to corporate influence.
But it's not just how he sees himself or how he sells himself. That is fact.
But the little parentheses in there, in the brackets, was also this is aimed at his Democratic rivals, is their way of saying, this could also hurt the Democratic Party. So for people in Washington, that is an unforgivable sin to call out the corruption of other Democrats. But for the rest of us, I mean, hallelujah. The clouds parting ways, the birds chirping. Finally, a Democrat said, yes, it's also bad when other Democrats take money. It's not just bad when Republicans take corporate money, it's also bad when Democrats do it. So look, the other candidates have a very important decision to make. Are they gonna follow suit and call out their own party, or are they too scared to do that? Well, that'll tell you who you should vote for. Because right now, it's not a contest. If Bernie Sanders is gonna fight for this, he's the only one that would clean up actual corruption and get our democracy back. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.